Good afternoon from Orlando. You're back with us at the ERP Today News Desk, live from the showroom floor of IFS Unleashed. I'm Stephanie Ball.
And I'm Mark Vigoroso. We are thrilled to have two special guests with us this afternoon. We have Stefan Sadnicki, Managing Director of EMEA and APJ for Copperleaf. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have John Green, Strategic Value Manager at Anglian Water. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So just to kick things off with the questions here. So you've been with Copperleaf for 10 years now.
Yep.
And one of the things that you mentioned when you first signed was the hope of getting that 2% greater customer value. So that would equate to £50 million after a course of 5 years. So how are you looking at that now?
So when we originally set out those numbers, that was based on 2% of capital efficiency on the program the size it was 10 years ago. Our capital investment program is now 4 times the size moving into our next regulatory period. And we're still seeing those sorts of efficiencies being generated as a result of the prioritization and optimization that the Copperleaf platform allows us to do.
So John, how do you take us through the process of evaluating different investment options at your company? How does that fundamentally work?
Okay, so when we're creating a business plan, we're looking at our current performance levels versus where we'd like those levels to be. Mm-hmm. We're also looking at the sentiment of our stakeholders, including our customers and our regulators, about where they'd expect to see improvements in performance and also what they're willing to pay for in improvements of performance. Mm-hmm. So once we've identified the types of areas that we want to invest in, we can start to generate a series of candidate investments which may or may not make the sort of final cut. Each of those investments might include a number of different, what we call alternatives, or otherwise known as sort of different solution options, how you might go about solving a problem or improving a particular performance area on a particular plant or a particular population. We then use Copperleaf to help us evaluate each of those alternatives from a cost perspective, but also from a benefit perspective. So when we're doing that cost-benefit analysis, you need to consider not only how much is something going to cost me from a capital and operational cost perspective, what am I getting for every pound that I'm spending, and when can I deliver that? And we feed all of that information into the Copperleaf tool and set the constraints, which could be financial constraints or performance levels that we hope to achieve. And then Copperleaf helps us to determine the best cut of investments and alternatives that then helps to build up our plan that we submit to our regulator.
What would you say is unique about your investment planning process?
There's a number of unique aspects to it. In particular for Anglian Water, the level of knowledge that we've got around our cost base is particularly unique and industry leading, and that's based on a number of years of taking actual costs from previous projects and building up complex cost models that gives us real confidence that when we're going to our regulator and saying we think this is going to cost X amount, that we're really confident in what X means. The other area that I think we're sort of leading in is around our value framework. For those of you that aren't familiar with the value framework, this allows us to express benefits and disbenefits in a common language, which is monetized. And we've built a value framework based on the 6 capitals model, which allows us to value things like flooding a customer's property, interrupting a supply of water, but also alongside things like traffic disruption or well-being improvements or health and safety. So we can consider the best suite of benefits and disbenefits and what that means for the money that we're spending. So we've got sort of some really good tools from the cost side, but also from the benefits side.
So your two companies have about a decade-long relationship, and I'm curious, are you still innovating today in terms of driving value from that relationship?
Yeah, so we've been working with Anglian Water for 10 years. We supported them through 2 of their regulatory periods, both developing that plan, but then supporting the delivery of that plan. And we've seen a number of innovations throughout that time. John talked about the value framework, some of the cost estimation functionality that we've developed. And more recently, we've done some really interesting work around climate change, understanding how the assets are going to be affected by climate change. We have wetter winters, drier summers, and that's causing the degradation rates that we've been using for a long time to change. And so using the Copperleaf predictive analytics capability, looking at different what-if scenarios, around different degradation rates so that we can predict what investment is going to be needed into the future.
Another area of innovation that we're looking into is a Copperleaf product called Risk Manager, which allows the effective capture of emergent operational risks that might require a capital investment solution, and allows us to prioritize those alongside known sort of planned risks and provide real visibility for our field staff in terms of where that risk is in terms of a process of prioritization. That kind of makes sense. So they've got visibility of what's going on, and it's not just disappearing into a black hole that gets forgotten about and then leads to some kind of asset failure or performance issue.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, John, for explaining that one. And just to cover a few of the benefits, I believe one of the areas that particularly stood out for you guys was the ESG gains. So from environment to also the governance side of that. Did you want to cover that off a little bit?
So we've talked a little bit about how Copperleaf supports the valuation, the value you're getting from your projects and your investments. Similarly, having an understanding of the cost, how much the different investments are going to cost and what resources it's going to require. But the other side is also understanding the carbon impact. And the cost modelling that we've done together incorporates a life cycle view of the carbon requirements for, firstly, to build the infrastructure, but also the life cycle requirements for operating the infrastructure. So I think what's really unique about Anglian is having that view of cost, carbon and value, being able to combine those all together to make the best investment decisions for all of the stakeholders.
And I believe you've got a couple of UK regulations that are breathing quite closely down your neck there, John. Did you want to explain a little bit about that too?
So I think we're talking about our journey with carbon. So we call it capital carbon, which is the carbon involved in the creation of the asset in the first place. And we baselined that in 2010, and we've since found that through employing tools like Copperleaf and other ways of thinking, we've reduced that 61% against the 2010 baseline. So a real significant change in the amount of carbon in the initial asset creation phase. And it's the data that's been available through systems like Copperleaf that really helped us to understand that and to measure it.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. It's brilliant to see that you can get such environmental gains and help the planet as well. And
just to talk a little bit more to that with carbon savings often come cost savings as well. So it is a win-win for from the financial perspective as well as the natural perspective, which is why having a value framework that considers different types of value is really important. So you can start to deliver not only financial value, natural value, social value, could be people value, so there's lots of different areas to look into.
Let's turn our attention forward and think about what's in the future for you guys, and think about IFS acquisition recently of Copperleaf. We have a Boomi partnership in there, and there's also in your technology stack, there are some other asset management type providers, and SAP, IBM, there's others in there. So curious, what does the next few years look like in terms of transformation, digital transformation, and innovation going forward?
We're very excited about the working with our IFS colleagues. It's going to help us accelerate our roadmap, and that's across many different aspects. We've got an exciting new features around risk management that John and the team at Anglian are interested in, but also from an integration perspective, being able to integrate with the variety of systems that Anglian Water use, but also in with the other IFS solutions. And I think what we'll see is Copperleaf IFS really being the first end-to-end asset lifecycle planning solution, which is going to bring considerable benefit to the market.
Well, thank you both for your insights. Appreciate you being here, and have a great rest of the conference.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.